Prince Harry, meanwhile, says that although he can't necessarily remember what was said in the phone call, he could remember thinking at the time how he might regret for the rest of his life just how short their last conversation was.
Prince Harry recalls that while he cannot precisely remember the details of the phone call, he distinctly remembers the feeling of regret, fearing he would lament for the rest of his life how brief their last conversation was. The tragic death of Princess Diana in 1997 left the world in shock, yet one crucial detail has continued to puzzle investigators: her final phone call. Questions remain about whom she spoke to, what was said, and whether this last conversation holds the key to understanding the true circumstances of that fateful night in Paris. Reflecting on her legacy, many remember her warmth and compassion, hoping to shed light on aspects of her life that the world may not have fully seen before. This video delves into the mystery surrounding Diana's final moments, exploring how her last words might offer new insights into the events leading to her tragic passing. In the early hours of August 31, 1997, the world was devastated by the news of Princess Diana's death. The beloved royal, known for her grace, kindness, and deep connection with the public, succumbed to injuries sustained in a horrific car crash in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris, France. She was accompanied by her romantic partner, Dodi Fayed, and their driver, Henri Paul, both of whom were pronounced dead at the scene. Diana was rushed to the hospital, where she fought for her life but ultimately could not be saved. The only survivor of the crash was Trevor Rees-Jones, Faye's bodyguard, who suffered severe injuries but lived to recount the tragic event. As news of the accident spread, investigations quickly followed. In 1999, a French inquiry concluded that Henri Paul had been driving at dangerously high speeds while under the influence of alcohol and prescription medication, playing a critical role in the crash. Paul, the deputy head of security at the Ritz Hotel in Paris, had reportedly provoked the paparazzi before speeding off with Diana and Dodi. Toxicology reports later confirmed the presence of antidepressants and antichoices in his system. Nearly a decade later, in 2008, a British inquest known as Operation Paget reached a similar conclusion, ruling that Diana and Dodi's deaths resulted from unlawful killing due to gross negligence by Henri Paul and the relentless pursuit by the paparazzi. Initially, reports suggested that Rees-Jones survived because he was wearing a seatbelt, but later findings revealed that none of the passengers had been strapped in at the time of the crash. Following the tragedy, the British royal family faced significant public scrutiny for their perceived lack of immediate response. Many felt the monarchy, including Queen Elizabeth II, remained distant and unresponsive during a period of profound national grief. It was only after mounting public pressure that the Queen addressed the nation in a rare televised speech, acknowledging Diana's impact and offering condolences to a mourning public. Even decades after her passing, Diana's legacy endures. She is remembered not just for her royal status but for the warmth, kindness, and humanity she brought to the world. Her influence continues to shape the modern monarchy, as reflected in the charitable work of her sons, who strive to honor her memory. Though her life was tragically cut short, the People's Princess remains a symbol of love, resilience, and the power of compassion. In the hours leading up to the crash, Diana made several phone calls, raising speculation about whether any of these conversations could be linked to her untimely death. On the afternoon of August 30th, she reached out to her journalist friend, Richard Kay, curious about how she would be portrayed in the upcoming Sunday newspaper editions. Though inquisitive in tone, she gave no indication that she planned to make any public statement. However, a more revealing account came from her eldest sister, Lady Sarah McCorquodale, who later testified that during a conversation on August 29, Diana had expressed doubts about her relationship with Dodi. Sarah sensed that the romance was on uncertain ground, a sentiment echoed by others close to Diana, including her trusted butler Paul Burrell, longtime friend Lady Annabel Goldsmith, and spiritual advisor Rita Rogers. All maintained that Diana had no interest in engagement or remarriage at that point in her life, with the princess herself having bluntly stated just a week before her death, "I need marriage like a rash on my face." It was a remark that left no room for misinterpretation. Diana sought freedom, not another wedding. Further insights into her final hours come from her former private secretary, Patrick Jeffson, who, after reviewing CCTV footage from the Ritz Hotel on the night of the crash, noted that Diana's facial expression carried a familiar look, one she typically wore when displeased with a situation. This raised questions about her state of mind that evening. However, additional CCTV footage released on October 6 painted a different picture, showing Diana and Dodi appearing at ease and affectionate, walking hand in hand just moments before the crash. They did not seem distressed or engaged in a heated discussion, but rather looked like a couple enjoying their time together. This contrast fuels speculation. Was Diana conflicted about her relationship with Dodi, or was she merely caught in the whirlwind of media scrutiny and personal turmoil? These unanswered questions continue to spark debate, adding layers to the mystery surrounding the final chapter of her extraordinary life. Although Diana's tragic death was unrelated to her dissolved marriage to the British royal family, it drew immense global attention. To better understand her journey, one must revisit the love story between Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer, a union that, in hindsight, was perhaps never meant to be. In the summer of 1980, fate brought them together in an unexpected way at a house party in New Grove. At just 19 years old, Diana found herself seated beside Charles on a bale of hay at a barbecue, where the conversation shifted to the recent loss of Charles's great-uncle, Lord Mountbatten. Their meeting marked the beginning of a relationship that would ultimately reshape the British monarchy and captivate the world. In the summer of 1980, fate brought Prince Charles and Lady Diana Spencer together in an unexpected way at a house party in New Grove. Diana, then just 19 years old, sat beside Charles on a bale of hay at a barbecue. As their conversation turned to the recent loss of Charles's great-uncle, Lord Mountbatten, who had been assassinated by the II a year earlier, Diana expressed her heartfelt sympathy. She told Charles that her heart had bled for him while watching the funeral and that it felt wrong for him to be lonely, emphasizing that he should have someone to look after him. Her words struck a deep chord, offering him a rare moment of emotional comfort. Until then, Diana had merely been his ex-girlfriend's younger sister, pleasant and cheerful but never a serious consideration. However, for the first time, Charles saw her as a potential life partner. Their paths had crossed before. Charles had visited the Spencer family home in 1977 while dating Diana's older sister, Lady Sarah, and Diana had attended his 30th birthday party at Buckingham Palace in 1978, as well as spent a weekend at Sandringham in early 1979. Yet, nothing had sparked between them. That changed after their heartfelt conversation in 1980. Charles soon invited Diana to Balmoral, the royal family's estate in Scotland, where she won everyone over with her charm, humor, and seemingly genuine affection for the prince. She appeared to fit the mold of a future queen perfectly, aristocratic, devoutly Anglican, and, by royal standards, untainted by past relationships. At the time, the idea of the perfect bride was strict, and by the 1980s, eligible aristocratic women who met these expectations were becoming increasingly rare. Diana seemed like a gift from fate. However, their romance was anything but private. The moment the press caught wind of their relationship, Diana's life changed overnight. Paparazzi camped outside her London flat, following her every move and making it nearly impossible for her and Charles to truly get to know each other in private. While the world obsessed over the prospect of a royal wedding, the couple had barely spent any meaningful time alone. Beyond the media frenzy, Charles also faced mounting pressure from his father, Prince Philip. Now in his 30s, Charles was expected to settle down and produce an heir. In early 1981, Prince Philip sent him a formal memo urging him to make a decision, either commit to Diana or walk away. The royal family was known for its formal, impersonal communication, and Charles misread the message. Instead of taking it as advice, he believed he was being ordered to marry Diana. Feeling trapped, he proposed to her on February 6, 1981, at Windsor Castle. It was a decision made under duress rather than love. Diana later revealed that before their engagement, they had only met 13 times, most of those in group settings. They hardly knew each other. The fairy tale image of their relationship crumbled almost immediately. Diana, who had been living a carefree life with her friends in London, suddenly found herself isolated within the rigid walls of Buckingham Palace. The lively, confident young woman who had enchanted Charles at Balmoral faded. In her place was a woman struggling with loneliness, insecurity, and an overwhelming loss of control over her life. She became emotional, anxious, and suspicious of Charles's whereabouts. Royal biographer Penny Junor explained that the transition from ordinary life to royalty was too much, too fast. Charles, too, was overwhelmed, Buried under his royal duties and unsure of how to handle Diana's emotional struggles, he withdrew. The marriage that the world had celebrated was, in reality, a tragic mismatch, two people pushed together by expectation rather than genuine love. On their wedding day, millions watched the grand spectacle, believing in the fairy tale, but beneath the surface, cracks had already begun to form. What the world saw as a love story was, in truth, a relationship doomed from the start, built on pressure, misunderstanding, and the impossible weight of royal tradition. From the very beginning, Diana's marriage to Prince Charles was a lonely and painful journey. Thrust into royal life as a young bride, she had hoped for support and love from her husband, but instead, she found herself battling isolation. She confided in author Andrew Morton that Charles never truly stood by her, leaving her to struggle under the weight of her newfound responsibilities. Worse still, she was haunted by the belief that his heart had never fully belonged to her, it remained tethered to his former lover, Camilla Parker Bowles. This suspicion gnawed at her, casting a dark shadow over their already fragile union. Desperate for Charles's attention, Diana resorted to heartbreaking extremes, hoping he would see her pain. She admitted to Morton that she sometimes harmed herself, including an incident in 1982 when, while pregnant with Prince William, she threw herself down a flight of stairs. Rather than responding with concern, Charles dismissed her anguish, accusing her of crying wolf. Even when he arranged for her to see a psychiatrist, his efforts seemed more like an obligation than a genuine attempt to help. In a letter to a friend, Charles lamented how any progress they made as a couple was always undone by setbacks, as though they were forever sliding backward. Despite her personal suffering, Diana found immense joy in motherhood. She adored her children, but the years between William's birth in 1982 and Harry's in 1984 were a blur of sadness. "I can't remember much of it," she admitted. "I've blotted it out, it was just too painful." Yet, even as she endured private despair, the world saw something entirely different. Diana was blossoming into a beloved public figure. Her warmth, kindness, and ability to connect with people made her far more popular than Charles, a fact that only deepened the chasm between them. On the surface, she wore a dazzling smile, making it easy for the world to believe she was living a perfect fairy tale. "Because I had a smile on my face, everybody thought I was having a wonderful time," she reflected. That's what they chose to believe, it made them happier. However, betrayal loomed behind the scenes. One of the most painful blows came when Diana discovered a bracelet Charles had specially commissioned for Camilla just before their wedding. When Diana confronted him, he brushed it off as a mere token of friendship, a sentimental nod to their past. What hurt even more was his insistence on delivering it to Camilla in person. According to biographer Jonathan Dimbleby, this was the first time Charles had seen Camilla since his engagement, proving that their past was not as distant as he had claimed. Diana, however, was not one to stay silent. At a birthday party for Camilla's sister, she finally confronted her rival. With unwavering confidence, she told Camilla, "I just want you to know that I know exactly what is going on." Camilla, unwilling to admit anything, feigned ignorance and replied, "I don't know what you're talking about." By the early 1990s, there was no longer any doubt that Charles and Camilla had rekindled their romance. Though secret, their affair was an open secret, and even members of Charles's own family and inner circle warned him that continuing the illicit relationship could damage both his reputation and the monarchy. When confronted about his infidelity in a 1994 television interview, Charles attempted to justify himself, insisting that he had entered marriage with good intentions but had turned to Camilla only after his relationship with Diana had irretrievably broken down. Defending his long-standing bond with Camilla, he declared, "She has been a friend for a very long time and will continue to be a friend for a very long time." Heartbroken but determined, Diana refused to let the betrayal define her and instead channeled her energy into humanitarian work. Confiding in her close friend James Gilby, she admitted, "If I let it get to me, I'll just upset myself more, so the thing to do is to throw myself into my work, to get out and about. If I stop to think, I'll go mad." As her marriage unraveled, Diana found a new purpose. No longer just a princess, she became a global icon of compassion, resilience, and grace. Though denied the fairy tale love she had once dreamed of, she refused to let heartbreak define her and instead chose to leave a lasting impact on the world, one far greater than the crown she once wore. As time went on, their marriage inevitably reached its breaking point, leading to their divorce. The unraveling of Diana and Charles's marriage reached a crucial moment on November 25, 1992, when Diana agreed to a legal separation, just a day after Queen Elizabeth II delivered her now famous Annus Horribilis speech, reflecting on the royal family's misfortunes that year. Aware that the world would soon learn of the separation, Diana made a deeply personal choice. Before the news broke, she wanted her sons, William and Harry, to hear it from her first. She visited them at Ludgrove School in Berkshire, preparing for one of the most difficult conversations a mother could have. Then, on December 9, 1992, Prime Minister John Major stood before the House of Commons and formally announced the separation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. He assured the nation that the decision had been made amicably and that both parents would remain involved in raising their children. However, despite the official split, the scrutiny and invasions of privacy only intensified. Just a month later, in January 1993, the royal family was rocked by yet another scandal. The infamous Camillagate tapes surfaced. Tabloid newspapers published transcripts of a secretly recorded phone call from December 17, 1989, between Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles. The deeply intimate and inappropriate nature of their conversation, especially Charles's offhand remark about wanting to live inside Camilla's trousers, joking that he'd probably end up reincarnated as her tampon, caused a media firestorm and further humiliated the monarchy. As public and press attention grew relentless, Diana sought solace in travel. Throughout 1993, she distanced herself from London, engaging in official royal tours to Nepal in March and Zimbabwe in July. She also took personal retreats, vacationing in Bali and taking William and Harry on an unforgettable trip to the United States, where they visited Disney World. Yet, Diana herself continued making headlines. In 1995, she sat down for a now legendary BBC Panorama interview with journalist Martin Bashir. Over an hour-long conversation, she candidly discussed her struggles, battle with bulimia, depression, and doubts about Charles's ability to be king. Most shockingly, she admitted to her own extramarital affair with former riding instructor James Hewitt. In one of the most defining moments of the interview, she delivered the now famous line, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." This interview was seen as the final straw by the royal family. Just 4 weeks later, Queen Elizabeth II took decisive action, writing personal letters to both Charles and Diana, urging them to finalize their divorce. In a rare personal touch, the Queen signed off her letter to Diana with love from Mama, making it clear that it was time to bring their saga to an official end. The following day, on December 19, Prince Charles responded with a letter of his own. As detailed in Sally Bedell Smith's biography Prince Charles, he acknowledged that their situation had become sad and complicated and asked Diana to join him in bringing it to an end. Despite their separation, Diana had continued spending Christmas at Sandringham with the royal family to maintain normalcy for William and Harry. However, by 1995, she made a poignant decision: she would no longer join the royal Christmas gathering. Then, on February 28, 1996, Diana's office released a statement announcing that she had agreed to Charles's request for a divorce, calling it "the saddest day of my life." She confirmed that while she would retain the title of Princess of Wales, she would keep her residence at Kensington Palace and maintain her office at St. James's Palace. Buckingham Palace, much like it would later react to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle stepping back from royal duties, was slow to confirm details. The palace merely stated, "This will take time." Meanwhile, behind the scenes, tension simmered. Queen Elizabeth was reportedly annoyed by Diana's premature public announcement, and her press secretary clarified that the decision to drop the formal Her Royal Highness title had been entirely Diana's own. The final divorce settlement was reached on July 13, 1996. Diana secured her home at Kensington Palace, retained an office, and was granted shared custody of William and Harry. Financially, she received an estimated $22 million lump sum along with annual office expenses of $600,000. Though she remained Diana, Princess of Wales, she would no longer be addressed as Her Royal Highness, a seemingly small adjustment that symbolized her formal removal from the inner royal circle. Thus, the fairy tale marriage that had captivated the world had finally come to an end, not with a grand royal decree, but through letters, legal documents, and painful personal reckonings. Yet, Diana's story was far from over. Even without the royal title, she remained one of the most famous and beloved figures in the world. In the years that followed, she continued to redefine what it meant to be a modern princess, on her own terms.